Danse dotentik tamskatnaga kyo pemitsitsig aya ninaskomani gano mamohtawi mao ego kawitsi go giksep ni stas kaute nahuma mamopon kandikan stamago. And I just wanted to say thank you and greetings, all my friends and my relatives. I just wanted to also thank Alan Monias, my relative, for opening the conference this morning with a song and an explanation. And he intentionally said all of it in Cree. Yes. You guys loved it, right? Yeah. How many here can understand the Cree language? Fluent enough to have understood him? Oh, that's okay, good. How many here cannot or did not understand a word he said? Show hands. That's too bad. Because that's how our ancestors felt when they were negotiating treaty in 1876.
Hear, hear.
I realized when he went on, right, he dove a little deep with the explanation of how the drum became as a gift from the Creator, the story that he told of the creation and the origin of the drum, and its connection to Mamo Tawi, Mao, and Mamo Gigawi, no? Yeah, Mamo Gigawi, no. If you attend our traditional ceremonies, and they're conducted in the original language, you'll notice that the elders always make reference to God, the Creator, and then Mamo Kikawi, no. And that is reference to our Mother Earth. And the elders have taught us for centuries now that without our Mother Earth, we would not be here, including all the plant life, the insects, the bugs, the animals, Bisiskoak, and so on. And that's what Alan was conveying in his presentation this morning. And when you hear that drum, boom, if you've never been around us or at our events, our conferences, our ceremonies, there's typically a drum to remind us, to humble us a bit as to who we are and where we come from. Because that's the first thing you hear when you're a tiny little human being in your mother's womb. They say that's the first thing you hear is the beat of her heart. Boom, 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 boom. And you'll always remember that. And so as indigenous peoples, as the government tried to assimilate us into a mainstream culture and do away with the Indianness and our indigenous culture and heritage, when many of us started coming back around to the drum at our powwows, remember that? Fort Battleford, Sakchoasik powwow when we were kids? It's like, wait a minute, I heard that before. Oh, when we were at the Sundances, when we were kids, when the elders said, Skama tapik, be quiet, be respectful. And as soon as we heard that drum, boom, 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 that's what that was. We did not know. We just kind of grew up with that understanding culturally. So that's what Alan was trying to say. I think he can add to it as well. I'm sure he reminded you of a few things. So we are going to have a discussion regarding protecting Mother Earth. And I kind of chuckled when Carbon RX folks called me and said, could you facilitate that? I said, yeah, we're probably just going to tell you should have listened. Your ancestors should have listened. Our ancestors have been saying this for centuries. Mamo Kikawi, no, take care of our mother. Yeah. And so I just want to, at this time, introduce two Ogemaos, not Okamakanak, Okimawak leaders, chiefs that represent, that are part of the Cree Nation. And there's multiple nations across Canada. But for the short time we have today, we've got a few questions. And I wanted to start off by introducing Chief Lori Whitecalf from the Sweetgrass First Nation. I don't have the bio right in front of me. I do know she's been a little younger than me. We grew up at a different time in the Battlefords. Grew up within the culture, our language, and the teachings of our ancestors. And to make just a quick introduction, I know you've been re-elected 3 times or 4 now.
Actually, my 5th term.
Your 5th term.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What's the secret? But let's give her a round of applause. It's not often It's not often you hear of a chief, especially female chief, being elected that many times. So I just want to thank you for that. So maybe a quick intro, a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm from, my name is Lori Whitecalf. I first want to acknowledge the elder this morning and our relative Alan for opening us up, of course. So my name is Lori Whitecalf. I was born and raised in Sweetgrass First Nation. I was first elected in 2011 in Sweetgrass as the first female leader. Sweetgrass was, we had 2 signatories to our treaty, Chief Sweetgrass and Chief Strike 'em on the Back. I'm a direct descendant of Chief Strike 'em on the Back. So a lot of that, our matriarchal society, their blood flows through my veins. And the Kukum Society in Sweetgrass, that's a grandmother, they remind me, oftentimes put me back on the right track, right? Remind me what my purpose is there in Sweetgrass. And yeah, I'm apart from being chief, my background is finance. I worked in finance for 30-some years prior to getting involved in politics. And I also ranch with my dad. We have cattle, horses, and chickens, and all sorts of animals. That's me in a nutshell, I guess.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chief, for being here. Now, David, you've got an interesting name, last name. We can talk about that later. But David Monias, for those of you who aren't Crees, but you may have heard that. Pimicikamak Okimawin. Pimicikamak.
Yeah.
Is that like Cross Lake?
Yeah.
That is. I know your community through hockey.
Right.
Yes.
The famous
Yeah,
Cross Lake.
we won the second
Yes.
championship.
Won the national hockey, national indigenous all reserve hockey championship this past spring. So, welcome back to Saskatoon Treaty 6 territory. David, Atsimo Hatsio, Awinu Makia. And the other question was, who are you? And a little bit about yourself and your community's position on climate change. I forgot to ask that. All right, second part.
Well, thank you. Nanashkamitin, the Tamiskaten. Kita Tamiskat, now is Togai do Temak, no. You then you are Gomaganek, that's why you know see a Wagu Toagis or Taski, you know. Odista Nanashkamon Tagagi, Pagamasi, get of Ta, like you say, no Minaga gave me at Tagipaski Tenak. First of all, I want to say greetings to every one of you, greetings to you, and greetings to all my relations and all my friends that are here. We're all related, that's why I call you my relatives. We're all one. And we just come from different backgrounds. And then I wanted to acknowledge the drum and also the elder that did the opening for us. And thank you for the tobacco that was offered to me. I come from Pimicikamak, also known as Cross Lake. My name is David Monias. I'm a chief of the nation. It's a sovereign nation. It's we maintain that sovereignty. That's how we get elected. But I also wear another title. It's called Chief of Cross Lake, Band of Indians. That's the Indian Act chief. Mm-hmm. So we're 2 chiefs. Mm-hmm. And one's a traditional, one's a Indian Act chief. But we operate under our governance system of we have 4 councils, elders councils, chieftain council, a women's chieftain council, and youth chieftain council, and an executive chieftain council. So we operate as one under Pimicikamak and Rimpila. Everything that's under the auspices of that governance, and we look after our land and our water and our people, regardless of where they are. That we feel that we are sovereign people, and we are responsible for those people and for the lands that are in our territory and our waters. We take it very seriously because we are keepers of the land. We are keepers of the water. And we're also responsible for the air that we breathe and stuff like that. Anything that comes and happens within our land, we take it very seriously. When you take development, and because we have certain knowledge keepers within our territories, that's why we have the elders there. Whenever something happens, there's a project. First thing that government wants to do is, I want an environmental impact assessment. Well, you know what? We're going to send our indigenous knowledge keepers to go out there and tell us whether it's okay to do this, because they know and they have their own standards in terms of what they're going to do, measurement, and what's going to happen. And I know you have your AI, right? but your AI doesn't have a relationship with our land and how you do and how you live off the land. We used to live with the land, now we live off the land. No, everybody does, because we take from the land, for our own survival. And I'm happy that you still recognize that there's the Mother Earth, to respect that. Because every one of us here that sits here, all of you, including myself, we should all ask forgiveness from Mother Earth and God, the Creator. And especially the trees that are out there, right? Because they're working their butts off, to make sure we have air to breathe, the oxygen, all the plants and stuff like that. So we have to make sure that we take care of that. And that's the climate change that are coming forward with all these things that are happening. And, and I know there's some people, environmentalists, say, well, they do protests and stuff like that, and I really appreciate that. But we have to be careful also that we don't point the fingers just out there. We also have to point it out here. I drove a truck here. It takes gasoline, it takes oil. There's material there that's extracted from those things. So I try to be careful with that. And then, when we talk about footprint that we're leaving, we have to be very careful with that too. Same thing with the people that are flying. So, we most times we try to minimize in our community. We do a lot of traditional stuff still. Mm-hmm. We don't hide anymore ceremonies, and we don't hide things that we do. That we still maintain that we have a right to hunt and harvest of the land, but we do it responsibly. And I think that's the thing that we have to talk about, is the responsibility we have towards Mother Earth, and to ensure that we leave a better future. And for our people, for our children, especially our future. So maybe I'll stop there for now.
Hey. Thank you, Chief. Chief Lori, what's your nation's position on climate change?
Yes. So our elders, and what Milton asked me was, what teachings do I get from our elders in Sweetgrass on our climate? Much the same as Chief Monias, we're taught as children growing up on the reserve through ceremony that we're a part of nature. When we say wakutu in our relations, that includes the water and the air and the dirt and the trees and the insects. They're all our relations, and if you treat them right, they'll treat you right. That's probably the biggest lesson I've learned. So when we're cleaning our reserve, we have, I'm really proud of Sweetgrass. Highway 40 runs right through it. We keep our grass cut. We have competitions with our youth to keep the yards clean, and the local RMs on both sides of us have contacted me and said, why do you do that? Now we're forced to do that in our communities. And I said, well, catch up to us, And that instills pride, but not just that bigger teaching of, if you treat Mother Earth well, Mother Earth will provide for you. In Sweetgrass right now we have our original reserves. There's 3 reserves that are the original Sweetgrass reserves, and comprise about close to 39,000 acres, and 18,000 of those acres or 18 sections, so that's about 14,000 acres, are natural. They're uncultivated, and our elders want us to keep it like that. That natural prairie, that's where we pick berries, that's where we pick medicines, that's where our traditional hunters hunt, that's where they fish, that's where they gather medicines. So growing up, I was taught that traditional way of life, trapping, snaring rabbits, hunting. I still do that. I still practice that traditional lifestyle. Picking berries, picking medicines. But now my elders have told me, Beatik, don't pick over there. Be careful. Don't pick along these fields because they've been sprayed. We don't know what's on that. Be careful about hunting. in this area that borders the river, because that river was flooded by husky oil and it was never properly cleaned. So be careful about hunting in that area until we decide that Gedeak will go there and visit that and use our indigenous knowledge to tell me and our community members when that land is clean enough for us to utilize it again for our traditional purposes.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. When we got the call to assist with this conference and the planning and the themes and whatnot in this very panel, after the call I kind of thought, Mama Scots, okay? These white guys are just starting to think of saving and protecting our Mother Earth now? I said, after maybe hundreds, perhaps many hundreds of years of our ancestors trying to teach these cultural values that have kept our land pristine. It's only because of, in the last couple hundred years here in the West, and I've studied a little bit of economics and industrial revolution and capitalism. Well, unfortunately, we can't put that little genie back in the bottle because capitalism's here to stay. Industrialization was forced upon us, and here we are today talking about trying to save our planet. And I've been very fortunate to travel the globe with the World Indigenous Business Forum, and I can guarantee you this is the same conversation Indigenous peoples have been having in Australia, New Zealand, South America, even in that parts of Africa and so on, right? So it's really not a new conversation for us as Indigenous peoples. But on that note, while I rant and rave before I better stop, you've heard a lot this morning, Chief Monias, and I'm going to tell the people what Monias means after the panel, in case you don't understand, you don't know yet. What's resonated with you so far this morning? We've heard a lot.
I think one of the things is that resonates is that when you talk about net zero, we were at net zero back in the day, a long time ago before the Europeans came here, and we did things about conservation in terms of how we did things. And people are starting to reach out to learn how to do those things. And one of the things that we always keep saying is that, and I think that you're starting to realize this, or maybe, is that anything without us, to me, it won't work, because you have to engage us to make sure that we are involved, to make sure that you are doing the right thing with our lands, and our waters and stuff like that. And same thing when you're doing a lot of the stuff that you're exploring, a lot of the things, that you be careful in terms of the language, because I was really impressed with the guys speaking here this morning, speaking in Cree. I did the same thing when I sat in the United Nations Indigenous Rights Working Group. I spoke in my language. Everybody had an interpreter except me. So I purposely stated that I was spoken in Cree for 15 minutes, and everybody got on going like this. But that's the thing, is that it's about communication, right? The relationship we have to make sure we communicate with each other, that we're open to each other to explore what the other person is thinking, what they're looking at, and how do they feel how this is going to impact. It's not about impacting how the people that are around there, but in terms of the way of life, but also in terms of our ecosystem, the one that they're talking about here. We all knew about the ecosystem. We are very much in tune how that works. That's why we do a lot of conservation when we have our trap lines or our areas where we go hunting grounds and stuff like that. We want to make sure that you keep certain areas, you leave it alone to let it grow, to flourish, to be more animals and stuff like that for future harvesting and so forth. And we keep doing that over in the cycle. And I think that by you saying that we're gonna start doing this and working with the indigenous people, to me, I felt that, right on, that's good. That sounds good, right? But my experience that I had with the government and coming from Manitoba and Manitoba Haicho is that, they speak well, but what they do is different. They unilaterally still do things their own way because money talks, and that's what usually, unfortunately, what happens. And yeah, so we understand people need to make money and so forth. That's the new revenue that's happening out there. But you don't even share it. And I keep saying, you don't share. I mean, even the bankers that were here, God bless you, what we're trying to do and stuff like that. But there's still lack of investment on reserve because people are not willing to invest on reserve because they think, well, I won't be able to get that thing back. If I lend you money, how am I going to get my money back and so forth? So, but there has to be that level of trust, I think, that has to happen there in order to work together to make sure that we are trusting and being able to do things together. But the only way you can do that is by communication, talking to each other and stuff like that. Get involved with us, get involved with our community, and invest in our community and so forth. And we will flourish, and we want to progress as well. We want to make progress for our people because we're a growing population and so forth. And unfortunately, the money is there that required to make progress sometimes in technology-wise because the young people that's what they want, right? But at the same time, our elders saying, be careful. You don't have money, money's not always going to be there. It may disappear and stuff like that. You may have it. But the water is always going to be there. The grass is always going to be there. The sun's going to be there. The trees are going to be there all the time. And that's what we want to maintain because that's our, I don't know if you guys know, when we look at our land, right, that's our medicine. That's where we get our medicines from. The water we drink and so forth. And that's our medicine. That's our store as well. That's where we harvest our food, And we have to make sure that what they're drinking and what they're eating is also healthy. Because we have to make sure that our people are going to be healthy. We're not going to be sick and so forth. So I think what really, to me, is that the communication, the relationship building seems to be up in the air there. They wanted to get into that situation, and that's good. That's what we want. We want to be in a relationship with you. We want to be able to talk with you and do business with you.
Thank you for that, Okimau. I just want to move forward to the next question for Okimau Whitecalf. From your perspective in building on the traditional teachings, how can nations balance the development of resources and protecting Mother Earth?
I think just going back, continuing to do what we're doing, what we've done as First Nations people. I heard a comment this morning. First of all, I want to thank Chief Reg for reminding and living that inherent life. Like, that's what I'm taught back home. We have an inherent treaty right. And when Chief Monias was saying to be careful, look what happened to our treaty is how it was misinterpreted by the non-First Nations, right? So going forward, I guess, is just to go back to our life the way it was before colonization, because we had it right then. We still have it right. It's in us, it's in our blood to live in harmony with the land, but just to practice, just like our First Nation right now, we could make a lot more sunyas. We can make a lot more money if we cleared more land and developed more farms. But the elders said, no, we need those trees. We need those plants. Those are our medicines. Even with our outfitting, like we have outfitting, we have some businesses in Sweetgrass, some individuals that make a living off of bringing non-First Nation hunters in to hunt. But they rely on the elders' knowledge, the traditional knowledge. Okay, don't only hunt X amount of moose this year, because we need to sustain that. We know that we wouldn't be here if we didn't have sustainable practices. As First Nations people, we wouldn't be here anymore. So when I came this morning, I stopped at my dad's to tell him I was coming here and talking about the Carbon Summit. He said, be careful what you share, he said. Don't be used. That's been ingrained in our generations before us. It's been ingrained in them that First Nations people have been used to sign treaty, to share our land. It hasn't been shared. it's been, we'll put you on this little box, right? We'll reap the benefits over here. So 2 things this morning that I heard. One was about the economy. We need to develop economies on our First Nations. We had economies before treaties were signed. Even when our reserves were created, we went on a tour this summer with our elders, with our youth, our little kids, our families. We took them around the reserve and they showed us this is where these families lived. They hayed. And this is you could still see the wagon tracks. This is where they went to that train station, they sold their hay. This is where these families lived. They collected wood and they sold that wood. We knew how to provide for our families. And when the federal government introduced the welfare system, that's what, I've heard stories of our elderly ladies, our kukums crying when the government introduced that, because it created dependence, right? I'm kind of going off topic, but I guess back to the question is, we just need to keep practicing our ceremonies and practicing our traditional way of life as much as we could. Like, we can't go back to horse and buggy. We have to adapt it too, but we have to continue to give thanks to Mother Earth and Creator for our gifts.
Chief Monias, I'm going to change it up. The question is, what does environmental sovereignty mean to you as an Okinawa leader of your nation?
Environmental sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
Yeah. You can only relate to, for us, sovereignty is related directly to having land and water, and being able to practice what you need to do to make a living for yourself, right, for your own people, and to benefit them. That, without restrictions, that's for us sovereignty. That's sovereignty. You own yourself. You own it, and we have to make sure that we have a say in terms of what happens in our land, in our territory. And for the environment that's there, we have a responsibility to that environment, and we have sovereignty over that because we are given that stewardship over that land to make sure it's pristine, to make sure it's healthy, to make sure it can flourish and nurture life. And that's what our environmental sovereignty is, to make sure that we take care of that. But it's us as keepers of the land and keepers of the water. That's what sovereignty is. But also in terms of impacts everything like air and so forth. So we always have to make sure that that we keep that in mind, that we are sovereign people, and it's attached to land and water and everything that happens around it. And it's our responsibility, a certain responsibility with everybody else that's there, to take care of that. But as Indigenous people who were placed there on Earth, in that particular area, that's our right and our responsibility, our inherent right, as he was talking about. And that's what that is.
We've all heard our chiefs, our elders say, when we entered into treaty, we never relinquished our sovereignty. We always had it, but something changed along the way. Somebody asserted their power and authority over our, I guess the truth here on our prairies anyways, our starving, sick, very sick First Nations people, and they were destitute, no position to maybe push back or fight back. In fact, in case you didn't know, we couldn't even hire lawyers to represent our cases until early in the 40s, 50s maybe? 1951. We could not hire a lawyer to make an argument against, say, maybe SAS Power was infringing in our territory, and no, they said, no, under the SAS Power Act of Saskatchewan, we're doing this, and our chiefs had no recourse. I'm glad they actually put the power lines up after all, but at the same time, there's been a lot of damage done to our Nipi, right? To
Yes,
our water
absolutely.
system. I know in our territory, a lot of farming, chemicals, spray croppings, those planes that fly around and spray. And I remember my late mother saying, "Bea, tegan ge, giguan ge, gasta tsegipta, ipschupuiguagok." Mia ma, she would say. I think they're poisoning our berries, our medicines, and so on. And I know when I served on council, we had the conversation about the impacts of crop spraying, for example, on our waters and even our aquifers underground, right? So again, a lot of questions. And before I get too off track, I want to get back to a couple more questions here. Whose turn is it? Chief Whitecalf, I think it's back to you. For I guess the questions, just to kind of close off our panel, it's unfortunate we never have enough time to dig deeper. But I guess that's the idea here at these forums, is to get some ideas going and maybe ask for the audience to ask deeper questions when they go back to their communities. But for the non-First Nations folks in the crowd here, Chief Whitecalf, what piece of advice would you share without giving away too much? Because their elders have also said, they will steal our ideas. Right? And so what would you share with our non-Indigenous friends here and allies in the audience today?
Right. What I would share, I guess, is to learn more. I encourage everybody here, our non-First Nation friends, to learn more. Ask, come visit, right? Partnerships are all built on knowing each other, right? In the past, First Nations, Sweetgrass were very welcoming. We welcomed people to the reserve. We had Federated Co-op out there. I took them on a tour. Was showing them an old rabbit trail. We got stuck. So I said, now you're really knowing what it's like to be on the res.
Rabbit trail.
And, but I guess is encourage everybody to learn, right? And I want to just go back to what Milton mentioned about 1951. I asked my parents this. I asked my parents, when were you able to vote? My dad was, but they were born in the 40s. Their parents could not vote or hire a lawyer until 1951. That's this generation. And that's crazy, right? So when the NRTA, the Natural Resource Transfer Agreement, the federal government pawned off their right to look after First Nations lands. Our relationship was with the Crown, but the Crown sloughed that off to the three prairie provinces in the 30s and said, you guys look after the natural resources now on behalf of the First Nations. We didn't even know. Our chiefs of the day probably didn't even have a clue what was going on. They probably weren't even consulted. And Chief Reg, I have to thank you again. I don't like saying consulted. I heard you at a meeting one time. I'm not going to be consulted. I'm going to be accommodated. Thank you for that, Reg. I use that in all my meetings now when I deal with people and companies. But that's the number one thing, is to learn and understand our history. When you see us, don't paint us all with the same brush. Like I've sat on a national committee for species at risk, and they said, what Indigenous language should we use for the writing of this? And I said, oh my God, there's so many languages across the country and you can't use one language. It's not, oh, they all speak Indian, right? Right? To understand that we're sovereign nations, and what happens in Sweetgrass might be different from what happens in Cross Lake. It is, right? There's a lot of nuances, there's a lot of differences amongst the nations, even in our communities. Milton and I are relatives, and we live 15 miles apart. 16 miles apart, Sweetgrass and Palmaker. But we have a lot of relatives where we're related to each other, a lot of people on the nations, but there's still a lot of differences, so you can't paint us all with the same brush. Oh, I talked to this First Nations person, now I know. what it's all about. If you're going to go meet with a nation, take the time to get to know them. Make it personal. Visit their community. Visit their elders. Go to the schools. See the kids. Build that relationship. And don't rip us off anymore. So I had a relationship, I just need to share this. I had a relationship with a, I don't want to name names, but with an oil and gas company. They were doing a pipeline through our treaty territory where we had some addition to reserve land. And they came and they took me by the hand and they said, we want to be your friend. They came out to our community, they met us. I said, I need a sustainable relationship. I need a relationship that goes beyond the construction of this pipeline.
Yeah.
They promised us, I said, and we need to meet nation to nation. You're going to meet with the chief and council, then we're going to meet with your board of directors and your president. So they did that. They did that for us. Man, I was just like, woohoo, I got this relationship for Sweetgrass. We're going to, as soon as they turn the taps onto that pipeline, they don't know who I am anymore. And that's how we've been treated. But like our elders say, we're becoming educated and we're learning the language of our non-First Nations partners. That's going to be our saving grace. We're becoming educated. We have lawyers, we have economic development entrepreneurs, we have bankers, we have we're on par now.
That way. And if we don't have them in our community, we have allies, a lot of friends stepping up now with those skills to help us assess, evaluate, and maybe sue you, right? So we don't want to sue, we'd rather iron it out as human beings. But yeah, Chief Monias, can you reveal what Monias means to our non-Cree friends?
It means white man.
And there's actually First Nations people in Manitoba with the last name Indian too, right?
Yes.
You know, I know a couple. Very Indian. And he gets... Anyway, Okimawin, parting words without giving away too much. What would you advise our non-Indigenous friends and allies in this room?
Okay, one of the things I heard her say was a consultation. By the way, this is not a consultation. It's a presentation. No, actually, be careful when you talk to people. I mean, be honest up front what they're doing. I had people coming up to me last week and they said they're prospectors, want to do meet and greet, so we did. And but they said, I only have much time. And I said, well, you got about 5 minutes, I said. So they talked to me about 10 minutes and stuff like that. I said, okay, so when can, we'd like to do this. I said, wait a minute, I didn't say you could. I said, well, we just came to consult with you. I said, well, consult does not mean consent, guys.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with that, and you have to accommodate, right? And you must have free, prior, and informed consent, written consent, to make sure that what you're going to be doing is actually fully understood by everybody that's involved, right? Not everybody's going to be in agreement in that community, but maybe the majority of the people want that. That's what you're going to go with, right? They're not always going to get consensus. But I think by doing meaningful consultation and accommodation, can free, prior, and informed consent is a really good way to do that, and to make sure you go out there. And I like the idea that you must visit those communities before you do anything there. Go spend a weekend and stuff like that, go hunting, trapping, fishing, whatever, berry picking and all that stuff. You'll see what's at risk that's out there. That's part of the ecosystem and all that stuff. That the satellites may not be able to see and pick up what cycle are we in. We have a governance system that's very natural, right? Right now, I'm not sure what you guys call September we say no cheat to pisim. That's a mating season, and that's where all the animals come around and stuff like that. They mate, and indigenous people actually go and harvest Pimicikamak, like animals and stuff like that, for food and all that stuff. But they're very careful in terms of what they select, in terms of how many they do practice regulation in terms of what they hunt and who they hunt and stuff like that. And those kind of things, we had to make sure that we follow those. There's 13 moons, right? every month has a different name. And that name also represents in what you're going to do that month. And that's our law that we follow in terms of that guides our way of life and stuff like that. Like right now, people are out hunting and so forth. I went hunting this past, not this weekend, but the past weekend, and killed a moose and stuff like that. Shared it with the elders and all that stuff, and shared it with some people who wanted to come and grab some moose meat and all that stuff. So the people that can't go out, right? So it's shared. It's not just, hey, it's all mine. And now there's going to be a moose hide out there that poor ladies are skinning right now. They're going to be making moccasins and all that stuff. So a lot of traditions are happening and all that stuff. So come and learn from us. Come and establish a relationship. And don't just read about us. Don't just about what people say. Come and experience the livelihood that we have and stuff like that. Forget about there's negative stuff that's happening everywhere. The gangs, drugs, that happens everywhere, right? Don't get scared of that. The majority of our people are good people, educated people. I myself, I have a master's degree in early childhood education, but also on public administration. And I have my accounting, I have my bachelor's degree, and I don't know, numerous negotiations, litigation, and all these certificates I acquired. We are very educated as well. So come and meet with us, talk to us. I think establish a relationship, and before you start getting us to sign anything like all that stuff. But I just want to say that it's a pleasure to be with you guys here, talk to you guys, and listening to you guys. I hope that you guys have a safe journey home, and that may God bless every one of you and bless your families. They have a safe journey home. I have my elder and that we talk about, and we also have our statesman here, elder statesman. I'll call him our Donnie McKay is our counselor for executive council for Pimicikamak Council, and he's here with me. And they were just driving here last night, and he was just tired. And he told his wife, says, "Get your camera ready, just in case we see a moose." Boom, a moose comes out. As he felt it already. Yeah. But anyway, so we do have an intuition for these things to make sure that what's right, and you want to do the right thing, but in the right way as well. So include us, because anything without us is meaningless, basically.
That way. Hi. Thank you so much. I just want to close by saying to our non-Indigenous friends, our allies, our engineers, our smart people out there, physicists, geoscientists, etc. You teach us about Carbon 101 language that I am just getting familiar with, net positive, carbon offsets, carbon positive, and so on and so on. You teach us more about investing, and we'll teach you, and so on, we'll teach you about how to protect Mama Okimawin. So with that, let's give these two a round of applause. And wish we had more time. We could be up here all day, but we won't. So do more. And I always say, on behalf of the Saskatoon Regional Economic Development Authority, our CEO, Aaron, maybe just a little wave there, our CEO. We are out there we're on our own campaign trail. We're not politicians, but we're advising corporate leaders in our community here to do more than just wear an orange pin and an orange shirt. A lot of people tucked away their little orange shirts last night or maybe on the weekend. We don't have the luxury of just tucking away our little orange shirt for the rest of the year. These are issues we deal with day in, day out, and certainly battling climate change and educating the world about the Indigenous worldview is something we also do day in, day out. So with that, thank you. We never say goodbye, right, in our language. Ego sipitama ki tuamina. Hai.
Ki tuamina.
Hai.